Alright, so I've decided to put together a very low effort midnight edition of a tips video on how to keep your box rotor running at its best. So before we even touch this, I want to address a couple of issues in here. And they're only issues because people tend to run things in a non-optimal way. For starters, we all know that the box rotor runs with a wireless transmitter, right? If it doesn't receive a cue from the gun, it will not feed the box rotor. And the way that works is the transmitter's in here, and there's an antenna that should be going down the grip. Like this little hole right here, you should see it right there. There's my antenna for my board, and if it's not here, it's tucked in there, which means it's encased in an aluminum little shell, right? It won't transmit properly if it's not close enough to the transmitter. So when you have it running down here, it's not encased in aluminum, it's also closer to the transmitter on the box rotor. That's the first thing. The second thing is, you paid a good chunk of change for some good technology, and if you're not using it, well, I guess you shouldn't be complaining about it. What I mean by that is, you've got the only marker in all paintball that has eyes on it, right? The sole purpose of eyes are to ensure that A, you don't dry fire, and B, you don't chop balls. But if you're not using your eyes, or if your eye pipe is dirty or scratched, or your eye plate is dirty or scratched, you're not going to get the best results. You're going to get chops, you're going to get dry fires. So please, if you got the technology, use it. All right, if you're not using it properly, you've got no right to complain about the dam not working properly, right? It's on you. Sorry. Next up, the box rotor itself. You can tell mine's pretty dirty. I don't use it that often. When I do, I go balls to the wall, as noticed here. It's a pretty simple piece of technology to maintain and understand. I'll work my way inwards from the top. This right here is a detent. Its primary purpose is to ensure that no balls come out while the box rotor is on, and its secondary purpose is to ensure a smooth pathway up the channel here into the breech, right? So when this is pushed all the way back, this piece of plastic ensures that there's nothing impeding the flow through the stack into the breech, right? And this is what it looks like when you have the eye pipe in place. This is what it looks like when it's all attached to your gun, right? So you see what I mean by ensuring a smooth pathway. Without it, there is about a quarter of an inch almost gap, and you can see it right there, which really shouldn't impede the flow of your ball. I mean, you're looking at a ball that's what, 0.685 on average. It shouldn't really get stuck in there. There's no reason for it, right? But here's the issue some people were having. In earlier versions of the dyed box rotor, there was no little nubby here thing, I think. I could be wrong, but there was no nubby thing. And what happens was, this wasn't being fully retracted all the way, and in some cases it was impeding the flow because this wasn't retracted all the way. So what they did is they added this little nub here. Some people went a bit further and they added either a piece of like felt or those chair leg felt thingies to keep it all the way down. Other people drilled a hole into here and put a set screw, and so they can govern how high or how low this sits. Me personally, I don't use this. I don't really see a reason for it. I have not had any issues by not using it in the past. So let's go into the inside now. So the one most critical thing you need in order to ensure that you have a good time in the field is this little piece of plastic right here, okay? It sits on your red fin. It's called a detent. You can see it right here, okay? And its primary purpose is to ensure that when your motor is not running, in other words, when it's not feeding balls vertically into the breech, the balls don't roll back down and around due to gravity. So what it does is basically a backstop. So it hits to this point right here and it stops. It doesn't go all the way down. That way your balls sit in the stack and they remain perfectly in position in the breech, ready to be fired. People sometimes lose these for whatever reason. It breaks or it falls out and they don't replace them. And what ends up happening is, like I said, the balls roll back, you dry fire, or in worst case scenarios, the ball isn't fully seated in the breech and you end up chopping the ball in half because the eye thinks it's in there, but it's not. It's not under tension, it's rolling back down. So again, what you got to do is ensure that you have this piece. You can kind of see it's still a bit wet. I actually glued mine into place with some Gorilla Glue. It doesn't have to be Gorilla Glue, any glue will do. Just put a droplet of glue right there, slap into place. And should this ever fall off again, get a pick it out. It takes 2 minutes. Put a new piece in and super glue it. You're good to go. The other thing I do is I use any type of oil on any plastic points that are coming into contact. I put a couple of droplets of oil in there, some on here, some on the gears in here. You can see this is dirty, so this has to be clean. You can't have any grime, any sort of moving parts or parts that are touching, right? And you can see mine's still oily, so that's pretty good. And yeah, so if that moves freely, you won't have any problems with feeding. The other thing that you should have, and I think should be mandatory if you're using a box rotor, is something called a 3-turn mod on the motor itself. This motor has a knob called the tension screw, and what it does is basically governs how much tension is put on the ball stack to feed the stack into the gun. When this is flush, and they come flush, I believe, out of the box, it's set to a relatively high tension. So what sometimes happens is your balls are fed really harshly into the gun, and sometimes if you have brittle paint, they break. So what you have to do is you have to turn this out 3. Out of the box, you can only turn this out 2 full turns, because of the fact that on the casing, there's this little nub here. But you can see that's what it looks like when it's normally, when it's not shaved down. That's what it looks like when it is shaved down. It's completely flat. And what that does is it allows you to take the screw, turn it out 3 turns all the way, and still sit properly inside of your case. So that's pretty much it with regards to ensuring that this runs optimally. Again, to review the steps or the things you need to do are 3-turn mod, ensure that everything that touches plastic or has moving parts is oiled up fairly well. Either mod this or don't use it at all, and ensure that your antenna is coming down the grip. If you do that, you should not have any issues with regards to shooting this. What I'll link in the comments is you'll see a video there that showcases me using a variety of 2-year-old paint, warped, egg-shaped, you name it, and it shoots it no problem, because I have all these places, all these steps being used. Okay, so that's pretty much it. Bye.